So I've made videos spotlighting diversity at both Marvel and DC, but there's another popular brand that's also trying to be more representative of its audience, and that's Disney Animation. In fact, Disney Animation has been dipping a toe in the waters of diversity for decades, but so far has gotten little reward for their efforts. People say they want to see characters up on the screen that look like them, yet the most popular Disney princesses, according to their sales numbers, are Elsa, Cinderella, Snow White, Anna, Ariel, Rapunzel, Aurora, Merida, and then finally, rounding out the top 10, Jasmine and Tiana. Now, Tiana did get a lot of attention for being the first Black Disney princess. Plus, we have to give a shout out to the incredibly popular Doc McStuffins. Both are an important reversal of fortune for Disney, which got into a considerable amount of trouble for their depiction of Black characters in their early animated shorts, and most infamously, their live-action animation hybrid film, Song of the South. So today, with Big Hero 6 having just hit theaters and Moana on the horizon, let's take a look at the history of diversity in Disney animation, focusing on their films. Now, back in the day, Disney Animation was, of course, personified by Walt Disney himself, a global celebrity. In fact, he was so popular that the United States government felt a trip for Disney to South America would help sway those countries in our favor over the Nazis. Now, sure, some might find that hard to believe, considering some of the negative attitudes towards Walt Disney today, but back then, Uncle Sam felt the choice was clear, and apparently felt the crows in Dumbo were hilarious, and footed the bill for Disney to tour South America with the purpose of returning to his studio and making a movie based on his travels. The result was Saludos Amigos, released in 1942, which proved to be so popular that The Three Caballeros came out just 2 years later in 1944. But then, just 2 years after that, Disney would undo all that goodwill, at least here in the United States, with Song of the South. Disney's publicity department had been concerned while the film was being made, and their concerns turned out to be well-founded. Walter Francis White, mixed race and one of the leaders of the NAACP at the time, did applaud the film for its technological achievements. However, he also issued a statement that his organization regretted that in an effort to neither offend audiences in the North or South, the production helps to perpetuate a dangerously glorified picture of slavery. Making use of the beautiful Uncle Remus folklore, Song of the South unfortunately gives the impression of an idyllic master-slave relationship, which is a distortion of the facts. As a result of the embarrassing backlash, Disney Animation would not try to depict any sort of diversification until 1967 with The Jungle Book, and even then the voice cast was entirely white. The film was quite successful though, which turned out to be a double-edged sword, as it set the tone for animation's own version of blackface, which the medium has yet to fully shake. Now, The Jungle Book was the last film that Walt Disney worked on before he died, and Disney Animation struggled to find its way after his death. But as it began to re-emerge in the 1980s, we got Oliver and Company, which featured a diverse cast, but again, only with the animals. But the voice cast here was a little more diversified this time, perhaps thanks to the New York City setting. Cheech Marin voiced the popular Tito, while Taurine Black from Hill Street Blues voiced one of the menacing Dobermans in the film. And the very next year, as the Disney Renaissance kicked off with The Little Mermaid, Samuel E. Wright became the first actor of color since Jose Oliveira and Joaquin Garay to voice a lead character in a Disney animated film. Plus, Wright sung the film's Oscar-winning song, Under the Sea. Yet while Aladdin focused on a Middle Eastern cast and produced Disney's most popular princess of color, Jasmine, the voice cast here was entirely white. But then came The Lion King, which not only featured a voice cast of respected Black talent, but celebrated African culture. However, playing it somewhat safe, all the characters were again animals, and many of the lead characters, including Simba, Scar, Timon, Pumbaa, and Nala, were again voiced by white actors. Although coming full circle, Cheech Marin would return to voice another animal for Disney Animation. The Lion King went on to become Disney Animation's most successful film until Frozen came along, became a Tony-winning musical, and is a large part of Disney's Animal Kingdom Park and Lodge in Orlando, which also celebrate African culture. Disney then made a conscious effort to diversify their princess line, adding Pocahontas, Esmeralda, and Mulan. But the first two were deemed a little too sexy for all ages entertainment, while to this day people are quick to point out that Mulan isn't actually a princess. Plus, she's become an easy punchline with cross-dressing. But at least Pocahontas and Mulan are official Disney princesses. The Emperor's New Groove, a Latin American story with leads voiced by David Spade, John Goodman, and Patrick Warburton. But Eartha Kitt would voice one of Disney Animation's most original and hilarious villains yet, Yzma, although the character herself doesn't seem to be black. Then, as Disney began to try computer animation, Dinosaur boasted an impressively diverse cast, including Ossie Davis, Alfre Woodard, Della Reese, and Samuel E. Wright. But again, more animals, and Dinosaur wasn't a big hit critically or box office-wise. Then, Disney Animation had a major breakthrough with Atlantis: The Lost Empire, featuring a diverse cast of human characters. Atlantis featured another interracial romance with another potential Disney princess voiced by Cree Summer, who was actually a princess. Atlantis also featured Phil Morris and Jacqueline Obrador, both voicing characters of the same ethnicity. Yet Atlantis also struggled critically and at the box office. But Disney Animation was now determined and next debuted Lilo and Stitch, which took place in Hawaii with Hawaiian characters, voiced by Tia Carrere and Jason Scott Lee. Lilo, though, was voiced by white actress Devin Chase. But Ving Rhames and Kevin Michael Richardson also voiced two characters. Thanks in part to a much smaller budget than usual for Disney Animation, Lilo and Stitch was a huge success, leading to an animated series and several direct-to-video sequels. Yet Stitch is the only character to really thrive outside of those films. The Jungle Book 2 also featured an entirely white cast of voice actors, while Brother Bear featured Michael Clark Duncan and Jeremy Suarez as animals. However, Disney Animation then finally created its first black princess, Tiana, for The Princess and the Frog. But sure enough, Disney found itself embroiled in controversy once more. When Disney Animation made an early presentation to its shareholders, black audiences were appalled that Maddie, which they felt was too close to Mammy, was a maid. Plus, the fairy tale would take place in New Orleans, which many felt made light of the recent Hurricane Katrina disaster. And they really didn't like that she ended up with a non-black prince. This time, though, Disney got out in front of the problem. They changed their heroine's name to Tiana, made her a waitress, but also an aspiring cook and restaurant owner, and here's the kicker, brought Oprah Winfrey on as a consultant and also had her voice Tiana's mother. And despite the initial negative publicity, that didn't stop many top black actresses and singers from wanting to make history as the voice of Tiana. Jennifer Hudson, Alicia Keys, and even Tyra Banks all vied for the role. But it eventually went to Hudson's Dreamgirls co-star and Broadway staple, Anika Noni Rose. Now sure, Tiana and her Middle Eastern prince spent most of the movie as frogs, but other wonderful human characters were introduced, like Keith David's villainous Dr. Facilier and Jennifer Lewis's delightful Mama Odie, both into voodoo. And while she's nowhere near the top, at least Tiana did make the top 10 list of Disney princesses when it comes to sales. Unfortunately, though, The Princess and the Frog itself was not a box office sensation, nor did critics or audiences fall in love with it. And as a result, it has yet to find a large presence in the Disney empire outside of Disney princess merchandise. But Disney will not be deterred. Their latest film, Big Hero 6, was chock full of diversity. The action took place in San Francisco, an East meets West mashup. Our lead character was young Hiro Hamada, and he and his brother Tadashi were tech geniuses. Both brothers were voiced by Asian actors, and the rest of the voice cast also mirrored their on-screen counterparts. Jamie Chung voiced Gogo Tamago, Damon Wayans Jr. voiced Wasabi, and Genesis Rodriguez voiced Honey Lemon, although you could really only tell she was Hispanic by her vague accent. A lot of the creative choices made for Big Hero 6 were motivated by the growing power of the Asian box office. And sure enough, Big Hero 6 was a financial powerhouse for Disney. Plus, it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. But at the end of the day, the most popular character in the movie is a white balloon. Now, coming in 2016 is Moana, perhaps another creative decision motivated by the success of diverse live-action films like the Fast and the Furious franchise. And sure enough, Dwayne Johnson will voice the male lead in the film. But Disney's troubled track record with diversity still haunts the animation studio. Will Moana be Pocahontas meets Atlantis, or Lilo and Stitch multiplied by Disney princess power? How do you think Disney Animation is doing when it comes to diversity? And why do you think that even when they do try, Disney Animation is having such a hard time succeeding when it comes to diversity? And finally, do you care if the ethnicity of the voice actor matches the character up on screen? Be sure to share your thoughts down below. I'm Grace Randolph, and this has been a Movie Bite. You can watch more right now.